Welcome to Thrive in Design, a podcast about making money in beautiful interiors as it relates to product-based businesses in the interior design industry. Each week, we'll discuss innovative strategies on how to approach product development and design sales in a shifting market. I'm your host, Nicole Lachey Ben. So welcome to the Thrive in Design podcast. I'm so excited to have our first guest as a part of the show. So today we have Tamara Archer, who is the principal designer at Archer Design. Raised in Brooklyn, New York with Trinidadian roots, Tamara Archer's design aesthetic is inspired by different cultures, world travel, architecture, and nature. Exotic flair with an urban edge is her approach to creating beautiful, timeless interiors. Tamara enjoys helping her clients improve the energy in their homes and businesses to find balance with designs that inspire, relax, rejuvenate, and recharge. Thank you for being here, Tamara.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. Good speaking to you again.
Yes, for sure. So, Tamara, I know a little bit about your story, but tell me more about what made you pursue a career in interior design.
Well, I really wasn't aware that interior design was a career growing up. The built environment, architectural details, furniture, finishes were all things that, I just enjoyed observing. I grew up in the Crown Heights area of Brooklyn, where there are lots of brownstones, and I grew up in a brownstone. So I had this unique interest in them, like the different shapes, the nuances of the small details that no one else my age seemed to care about.
I can relate to that.
So years later, after I'd already started a career in advertising, I'd come across a 4-year interior design program at the Art Institute, and I enrolled.
Okay. So you actually started your career in advertising, which is really interesting.
Yes, I started in advertising.
Yeah. For me, I could totally relate to your story of saying like you noticed design aesthetics when you were really young. Like for me, I was like 12 years old and all I was watching was HGTV. And I was like, this sounds great. Like I want to be an interior designer, not knowing all the many facets of it. So as you had that interest in design, you went in a different path of advertising. What made you switch your career path to interior design and go back to school?
Well, I liked advertising because I liked being in a creative environment, but I wasn't creating. I was doing more of the project management side of it. And so while I liked it, I wasn't passionate about it. So when I figured out that there was, a career that I can be an interior designer, I'm like, I'm just going to go for it because I wanted to follow something and do something that I would be passionate and fulfilled by doing. And advertising just wasn't doing it for me.
I feel you. Okay, awesome. All right. So you went back to school, you got your degree, and you dived into interior design. So where did Archer Design, your business, fall into play?
Basically, it was a lack of opportunity. I graduated from design school around the time that the recession started and design firms were not hiring. So I created my own opportunity by designing condos for my neighbors in the building where I lived in Miami at the time. And it kind of just blossomed from there. I put an ad on our intranet service. One person contacted me. I redesigned her apartment and she loved it. And then another person contacted me and another person contacted me. And then even that first client, she moved to a different city and hired me again to do her apartment there. So, but all the time I was still working in advertising and marketing at the time, full time, and doing design, in my free time on evenings and on the weekends.
Okay, awesome. I love that you just put yourself out there. It was like, I am doing this. I'm creating my own opportunity. And you started with residential. So as your design firm has evolved and your career in design has evolved, what types of projects do you work on now? And then what's been your favorite project and why?
Well, I still work on residential design, but I also do hospitality design projects now. And for 2.5 years, I worked on cruise ship design. And I also did some resort design in Jamaica. But my favorite project so far has been a Brooklyn coffee shop that I worked on that I completed a couple months ago. And that's my favorite because, I had the opportunity to design more outside of the box. Business owners are usually more open to design concepts that aren't tied to their own personal style. So that gives you a lot more flexibility as a designer to be more creative. So that's why I kind of enjoy hospitality design a bit more than residential design.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I know when I was back in high school, after I decided at 12 years old, I'm going to be studying interior design, I had like an internship, like a mini internship for 8 weeks, was at a residential design firm. And those clients were so emotionally attached to their homes, right? And as they should be, right? This is
Yes,
where they're creating memories and spending time. But I was like, I need to learn about the different options, the different options. So I love it that you kind of have had different experiences in cruise ship design and hospitality design and some other types of commercial things too.
Right.
That's awesome. Whether it's a residential project or a commercial project, what does your design process look like?
Well, my first step in the design process is the most important, which is getting to know my client, like learning about what they do for a living, what their hobbies and things are that make them happy, what stores they like to shop at, what colors they like, what colors they don't like. It's important to me when I'm designing a space that I'm designing it based on that I'm not designing it based on my own personal style, but my client's style and personality. Recently someone asked me to tell them about a time when a client didn't like a design that I presented to them. And that's never happened. While there may be design revisions here and there, I've never had a client that just didn't like my design concept. And I attribute that to spending time really getting to know who my client is and setting realistic expectations. That's the part of the programming phase where we also, survey the space, take measurements and pictures and so on, but getting to know who I'm designing for, because you want to make sure that that client is a good fit for you. You're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for you. Because too often I have come across interior designers, on Instagram and social media, where you look at their feed and every space that they've designed can be for one person, the same person. So it's like, that tells me like you're designing for yourself. You're not really designing for a particular client. Like you're hoping that the clients that you attract are clients that share your aesthetic. And to me, that's not challenging. I like to be challenged. I like plethora of all different styles and historical eras of design. So when I come across a client that has a different design style from me, that's a challenge, and I love that because it keeps it interesting.
Awesome. So after you're getting to know your client and what their design aesthetic is, you survey the space. What's the next step for you from there?
Right. So then after that, we move on to, the schematic design phase, where we're developing the design concepts and, looking at spatial relationships, color schemes, determining the design style. And after that, is the design development, where we start to execute the design. So we're finalizing the floor plans, elevations, lighting plans, we're selecting furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And then construction administration, if there's any renovation or contractor work involved. And then, finally the installation, where we go in and, we put everything in place and, that's it. Yeah. So, there's different, just smaller steps along the way, but that's the overall process.
Is that the same process, whether you're doing a residential or a commercial space?
Yes, it's mostly the same process and steps.
Okay, awesome. As you're getting towards like the third or fourth phase in your design, like that design development and picking out your finishes, picking out your furniture, do you have specific brands of products that you go to when you're specifying?
For residential, probably not, because I kind of like to mix it up a lot. And then, you have clients that have all different styles. So it's hard to just say, okay, I'm going to go with this supply. This is my go-to supplier for this or that. For when it comes to hospitality and commercial or outdoor spaces, I would say yes, because those spaces, durability and maintenance is very important, due to the high usage. So you're going to have suppliers that are better for those types of things, for like high usage areas that you can rely on. So in that context, yes. But I'm always exploring new suppliers. I'll go to different design and furniture shows. So I'm always expanding my network and list of suppliers. So I always try to like do different things so that, the design can, evolve. So it's not the same thing and the same finishes and suppliers over and over.
So I saw that you recently went to BDNY. That's one of my
Yes.
favorite shows to attend. I
Yes.
did not go this year, but probably next year I'll go. So as you were going through the show, without saying any like brand names,
Mhm.
what were some things that stood out to you in terms of like innovation, products that are out there right now?
Right, definitely the design innovation. Commercial and hospitality design has been at the forefront of setting design trends. So I always look to those manufacturers and suppliers to see what the next wave of design trends are that'll also impact and shape residential design. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And because I've been working in cruise ship design for so long, like the things that we've been specifying for the past 2.5 years, you're now seeing them in residential design. So, it's kind of like the runway in Paris, like you have the high fashion things and then, then you have the fast fashion. It kind of mimics the same thing where, like I said, hospitality and commercial, you see the more innovative products start there and then it's adapted for residential design.
Yeah, that just reminded me of that scene of The Devil Wears Prada when Miranda is like talking about cerulean blue and how it came to the Paris runways and then came into, a Macy's or something like that.
Right. Yep.
So
That's exactly how it happens in interior design also.
right. So were there any things that you were like, oh man, I have to use these things in hospitality or hope to see these things in residential when it comes to like furniture, paints, I don't know, any type of innovations that has recently stood
I
out
think
to
like
you?
sustainability has become very important, as companies are a lot more conscious about minimizing their carbon footprint, and also incorporating technology and design. It's been interesting to see how the built environment is having to adapt in a way that seamlessly integrates technology, so we've
Mm-hmm.
seen it in smart technology, USB charging and things like that integrated into furniture pieces. Another area that I see a lot of innovation is with solid surfaces like countertops and tiles. Quartz is becoming so much more popular than granite because, it can mimic the look of granite and even more expensive stone like marble, and it's much more durable and it's easier to maintain. And it comes like in a plethora of different colors and patterns. Also flooring, like luxury vinyl tile and planks that, mirror the look of natural wood, but, it's highly durable and easier to maintain. There's a lot of design innovation in terms of sustainability that,
Mm-hmm.
is giving people a lot more options now.
Okay, awesome. So sustainability, integrating that technology into different materials,
Yes.
and then having the durability and the look of something that's more expensive,
Right.
but for maybe a lower cost.
Well,
Is that
the cost isn't always necessarily
okay?
lower, but you just have a lot more options,
Options.
and
Okay.
it's more durable. It may last longer and you can get different looks. So, with quartz, you can get quartz that look like granite. You can get quartz that look like marble. You can get quartz that just looks like a solid color like resin. So there's just more, it's more options. You get a lot more options.
I'm loving this. So, with my company, Thrive in Design, I'm really focusing on helping interior product companies really revamp a designer's experience with like an interior product company. So, as you're specifying things, so there's three areas that I want to focus on. One is like how you're coming across these brands, right?
Mhm.
How a company or their sales team might be consulting you or helping you in your specifying process,
Mhm.
and then what the ordering process kind of looks like. So I'm going to get your feedback in this in this section of our conversation. So when you are searching for products, what do you typically need in your experience with a product company?
I need a rep who is knowledgeable about their products, because I'm going to have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So that's number one, is like having a rep that knows, where is your product manufactured, where is it distributed, things like that. Especially now that, there's so many issues with supply chain, you want to make sure that, the distribution centers are nearest to where you need the products to be delivered. So things like that. I work with clients, globally. So I want to know about materiality. I want to know where it's manufactured, where the distribution centers are located. So things like that. That's some of the important things that I would want, the company to be able to provide that type of information.
Right. And then typically, if you're working with a new vendor, say like you were at a trade show, right? And you came across a booth and you're like, oh my gosh, I love all of these products. What would you need in that first encounter with a brand that you've never used before?
Again, knowledgeability is very important. And of course, the aesthetic of the piece,
Okay.
and again, I think the three things that I mentioned, and just like where it's manufactured, because you want to make sure that you can get it to the end user, in a timely manner.
Right.
because, because, things are already pretty crazy, having to explain to clients why things are delayed and delayed and delayed. So,
right. Especially right now.
That is very important.
Okay, awesome. So as you've gotten familiar with your rep, right, they've given you all the knowledge about the product. You're like, okay, this is great. Is there anything else that you would need as you're specifying a product, or maybe even going into like the ordering phase?
Just, I guess it depends on like when you're dealing with like hospitality, or even let's say, for instance, cruise ship design. Like there's a lot of different guidelines that, products need to meet in a marine environment. So having a rep that's knowledgeable about IMO and things like that are very helpful. Knowing if I'm specifying, let's say, fabrics, knowing what the Weizenbeek is, and double rubs, that type of information, is very important.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, it's always about the knowledgeability of the product.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me as a rep too, as I'm getting to the final finish line of a project with a designer, sometimes things are getting like VE'd. For those who are listening, if you don't know what that means, like value engineered, or it might be getting switched out because another manufacturer doesn't have what they need available at the time, or can't get it to a date. So would you say that is also important too, as you're working with a vendor?
Yes, that is important. Like you said, things get value engineered a lot, and it has to be switched out. So, you need to have, that's why it's important to have a large network of suppliers, because you never know if one thing is not going to be available, if you're going to have to come up with an alternative that needs to be able to work. That's also like, an aesthetic match for your original spec.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm wondering what that looks like for you. So like, say you're working on a project, and let's use fabric as an example, right? And it's not available or won't be ready for when you need it, like when the fabricator needs it. And then you're like, oh man, I need to get a different fabric, something that looks like what I need it to look like, fits the budget, and gets to the timeline. You have a network of reps and vendors. Like, where do you even go first? Do you send out a huge, email blast? Do you call somebody? Like, what does that look like for you on your side? Because I know what that looked like for me as a rep when I got the call or email.
Well, I have like, when it comes to fabrics, let's say I'll have like about 5 vendors that are like the first that I'll go to even look when I'm speccing. So if and this happened to me recently, where I couldn't use a fabric because it just wasn't appropriate for the environment, and that company was not able to provide the type of treatment that I needed. So I went to another company and I was like, look, I need a fabric that is similar to this, but it needs to have this type of treatment. And fortunately, they were able to develop a custom fabric that was similar to the original spec with the treatment that I needed. So, it is always good to have like your core suppliers that, you can go to in those times, because the more you use reps, the more that they'll be available to provide you with that type of white glove service. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I always try to keep, a few, especially like I said, with hospitality and commercial design, always try to keep a few of them that I kind of use like as a preferred, vendors. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, on the rep side, or just working for product manufacturers in the past, I'm always got to be ready, right? You have to be on your toes, and then those companies on their end need to make sure they have like the systems in place or the custom department in place or whatever to make sure that they are available to serve their clients. So
Yep.
I love that. I love hearing about your design process. It's always so interesting.
Thank you.
So Tamara, what can we look forward to with your company? Anything new coming up?
Well, with my company, I think right now we're focused on more commercial and hospitality spaces. So I think you'll have more of that to look forward to, and also working on home decor line. My daughter's an artist, so we're working on taking her art and incorporating it into some home decor items.
Awesome.
So that's going to be one of our focuses next year for sure.
Yes, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. So where can people find you online?
tarcherdesign.com, and I'm also on Instagram at t.archerdesign.
All right. Well, thank you, Tamara, for sharing with us today. And I hope you all enjoyed listening to Tamara's career endeavors and about her design process as well. So thanks, Tamara.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week on Thrive in Design. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Thrive in Design. And for more strategies on how your product company can innovate in the interior design industry, head to training.thriveindesign.co. As always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to create captivating content. See you next week.